I knew the moment I stepped into Marcus Hale's corner office that something had gone terribly wrong. He didn't look up from his tablet, didn't offer the usual curt nod or forced smile that passed for politeness in our executive suite. Instead, he sat hunched like a man reviewing quarterly projections, fingers tapping idly as if deciding on lunch instead of ending someone's career. The blinds were drawn halfway, sending sharp blades of November sunlight slicing across the polished oak desk and the single manila envelope positioned perfectly at the edge, waiting like a loaded gun. "You're being let go," he said flatly, voice devoid of inflection. "Your position no longer fits our forward strategy. Security will walk you out immediately." No preamble. No eye contact. Just 7 years of dedication erased in 30 seconds. I had built Nexus Dynamics from a cramped loft in downtown Austin for coders. One unreliable server. And dreams bigger than our budget into a SaaS powerhouse licensing enterprise tools across 15 countries. I had negotiated vendor contracts that saved millions, restructured operations during the 2020 crash, and guided the company through rounds of funding that turned rented desks into a gleaming high-rise headquarters. Yet Marcus didn't even glance my way. No performance review. No transition discussion. Just a cold dismissal delivered like closing a browser tab. The envelope contained the standard termination papers, boilerplate language pulled from some HR template, citing strategic realignment without cause. I scanned it slowly, feeling the paper's crisp edges under my fingers, while my mind raced through the implications. 7 years. 14 weekends straight on the latest expansion strategy. The one Marcus had barely skimmed before approving it during one of his lavish off-site retreats in Napa. I could have exploded, demanded explanations, or let humiliation burn through me. But I kept my voice steady, almost conversational. "Let's handle this properly." I signed the documents right there, pen moving smoothly across the page, as if approving expense reports. Marcus gave a tight nod when I slid them back, mumbling something about an escort downstairs. I stood, tucked the envelope under my arm, and walked out without looking back. The security guard waiting by the elevator was young, mid-30s, uncomfortable in his too-tight blazer. He asked if I needed to collect personal items. "No," I replied calmly. What mattered most lived in encrypted drives and legal structures Marcus had never bothered to understand. As the elevator descended in heavy silence, humiliation crept in, the slow burn behind my eyes, the tightness in my chest. But beneath it simmered something colder, sharper: calculation. Marcus thought he had removed just another VP of operations, another interchangeable executive. He had no idea who Sophia Langford truly was. He never asked about Summit Holdings on the capitalization table, never dug into the layered trusts or the original operating agreement I had drafted myself when Nexus was still a scrappy startup in a strip mall office. Outside, the Austin air bit cold, my breath fogging as I crossed the street to a waiting car. I didn't speak to the driver at first, letting the city blur past while I processed. Then I pulled out my phone and began the sequence that had been prepared for years. 8 years earlier, Nexus Dynamics was 4 people sharing a coffee machine that burned everything and a printer borrowed from a neighboring tenant. The founders were brilliant engineers, but business structure, cap tables, contracts, equity agreements was foreign territory. I stepped in quietly, offering 6 figures through Summit Holdings without fanfare. No co-founder title. No spotlight at product launches. Titles fade. Real leverage endures. I drafted the founding documents personally, 50 pages of precise, dry language hiding razor-sharp protections. Every investment round after that, 4 in total, mixing equity, convertible notes, and bridges, channeled more capital through my structures than the original team combined. Shares stayed anonymous under Summit Holdings. Voting rights, material decision notifications, Board pre-approval clauses for major actions like executive terminations, all embedded deep in appendices, most never read. Marcus, hired as the visionary disruptor, never reviewed them. He preferred flashy town halls, colorful org chart slides, and rebranding initiatives that discarded vetted partners because their logos didn't match his aesthetic. I watched it all in silence. The moment he fired me without process, he triggered the very safeguards I had built. Back in the hotel suite I had kept reserved for scenarios exactly like this. I opened my laptop and accessed the digital vault. Appendix C contained the clauses. Any termination of an executive holding significant vested interest required stakeholder notification and board supermajority pre-approval. Marcus had bypassed everything in his arrogance. I drafted the notifications myself, clean, clinical, bulletproof. Subject lines read, Activation of Material Decision Clauses 12A and 19C. Attached were annotated copies of the operating agreement and my termination papers. Sent directly to board members' private inboxes per protocol. No drama. No threats, just facts timestamped and admissible. By the time I poured a drink that evening, the procedural storm had begun. The next morning brought an unnatural quiet across the company. No frantic contract reviews. No excited memos about upcoming hiring events Marcus had hyped. Legal went dark. I monitored from the suite, knowing precisely what the notifications had unleashed. At 10:17 a.m., General Counsel Derek received the stop work order. All material actions frozen pending majority stakeholder review under clauses 12A and 19C. Violations risked fiduciary breaches under Delaware law. Marcus was mid-preparation for a keynote when the notice landed. Reports from trusted contacts described his disbelief. Who the hell is this majority stakeholder? Must be a glitch. He paced, demanding names, accusing the board of complicity. But no one reassured him. Every board member had opened the encrypted files revealing Summit Holdings' 85% controlling interest. The voting proxies, the trust layers, and my notarized declaration as sole agent. The atmosphere shifted from panic to careful restraint. They realized decisions, once rubber-stamped, now required my approval. Marcus's tantrum only highlighted his ignorance. He never understood the company he claimed to lead. The board meeting was scheduled for the following week in the original 6th-floor conference room, the same space where early teams once huddled over whiteboards and cheap coffee. Marcus tried relocating it to something more dignified, but Chairman Allen rejected it curtly. Protocol stands. That quiet denial cracked the illusion of his control. In the days leading up, I assembled the proxy packet. Ownership breakdowns, clause activations, binding vote authority, all notarized and audited. Sent via secure distribution with a simple note, ensuring compliance before further actions. No negotiations, just correction. Board members absorbed it silently. They recognized the legal weight and the years of preparation behind it. The morning of the meeting, tension thickened the air. Fresh flowers and untouched catered breakfast couldn't mask it. Marcus sat at the head, chin high, blazer impeccable, projecting confidence. Board members entered with neutral expressions, avoiding his gaze. Allen arrived last, placing a thick folder on the table. This session addresses procedural irregularities in an executive stakeholder termination, he began, voice steady. He entered the revised register, Summit Holdings, managed by Sophia Langford, held 85% controlling interest, verified through 2015-era documentation. Silence fell absolute, no shifting chairs, no cleared throats. Marcus's face drained of color. There must be some mistake. Allen continued without pause. Reading the clauses granting majority rights to trigger reviews and request confidence votes. Marcus pushed back from the table. This is absurd. Adjourn. We need counsel. Alan remained calm. You may bring representation next time. This proceeds. The vote came clean and clinical. 1 by 1. Yes, to remove Marcus. 9 affirmative. 1 abstention. No one defended him. Alan announced the outcome. Effective immediately. Marcus Hale is removed as CEO. Marcus stood slowly, chair scraping loudly, and walked out without a word. The door's click echoed like finality. After a long pause, Alan moved to interim leadership. I had already prepared. Mia Chen, a sharp operations director known for quiet competence, would step in. She understood infrastructure, diplomacy, and the value of listening over theatrics. No dramatic announcements, just a 3-page transition plan emphasizing stability. Under Mia's interim leadership, the company began to exhale. The reorganization avoided flashy charts or buzzword pods. Instead, precise adjustments restored what Marcus had disrupted. Vendor relationships, gutted by his aesthetic-driven decisions, were rebuilt using long-standing contacts. Procurement stabilized. Engineering timelines returned to realistic schedules. And marketing shifted from chasing trends to measuring real performance. Deals stalled under Marcus's urgency began progressing. An international partner who had withdrawn after a disastrous summit re-engaged within weeks, citing rational leadership as the draw. Internally, energy transformed, less fear, more alertness. Employees who had disengaged started contributing ideas again. Slack channels filled with genuine collaboration instead of sarcasm. I observed from the board level, preferring strategic oversight over daily operations. No corner office. No title grab. Influence mattered more than optics. The building no longer felt like a pressure cooker. It regained purpose. Marcus's name faded quickly. No eulogies. No mockery. Just collective relief as the organization steadied. One afternoon, walking through the atrium, I overheard a junior developer telling a new hire, "That's where the leadership that actually listens operates." She didn't notice me nearby, and I preferred it that way. 3 months later, the rhythm felt healing, steady, directional. Mia handled day-to-day with clarity. I focused on capital decisions and long-term safeguards. Then a message from Alan arrived, a link to Marcus's LinkedIn. His new profile showed the same polished photo, now captioned as advising early-stage founders on strategic exits and transformational leadership. The post claimed every ending is a beginning. I read it twice and laughed softly, not bitterly, but with the recognition of someone seeing through a facade. Likes were sparse. A comment from a board member who voted him out stood out. Start by reading your own bylaws next time. It garnered quiet but significant engagement. That single line encapsulated the lesson. Ownership isn't about headlines or confident posturing at the head of a table. It's the foundations laid in silence, the clauses overlooked, the leverage respected only too late. Marcus had seen me as disposable, a footnote in his vision. That manila envelope represented his attempt to erase me. But he had terminated the very person holding the company's reins through careful, legal preparation. Returning to the office felt like slipping back into a familiar current rather than a triumphant comeback. I parked in the same corner spot, swiped my updated badge, and walked past reception with a subtle nod. The guard barely glanced up. The receptionist did a quiet double-take, but said nothing. The hallways carried a new quiet, not oppressive, but productive. In the conference room for an Asia-Pacific rollout discussion, Mark Greaves, the same VP who had escorted me out, sat mid-conversation with Mia and directors. When he saw me, guilt and surprise flickered across his face. He half stood, beginning an apology. I raised a hand lightly. Let's move forward. He sat, and the meeting continued seamlessly. No reintroduction needed. My presence spoke through results. The discussion focused on logistics, vendor compliance, partner onboarding, detail-oriented work I had always excelled at. I listened more than spoke, asking targeted questions that drew deeper answers. Mia led effectively, and I supported without overshadowing. The room's tone felt focused, stripped of performance. People built rather than jockeyed. Afterward, a few lingered, not out of obligation, but quiet appreciation. Handshakes and simple "good to see you" carried weight. As I left the lobby, the receptionist smiled softly, understanding I needed nothing more. Outside in the cold, I smiled privately, not for return, but because true authority never required announcement. The months that followed reinforced stability. EU licensing agreements were revised thoughtfully. Strategic decisions balanced growth with protection. The company no longer pitched too far off balance, it navigated with intention. Employees re-engaged because the environment valued substance over spectacle. Marcus's rebrand attempt on LinkedIn lingered as a quiet footnote. The board members' comment remained visible, liked by familiar names, underscoring that preparation and legal foresight outlast ego. No further drama unfolded, just the quiet affirmation that structures built patiently endure. Looking back, the transformation revealed deeper truths about power in corporate America. Marcus had embodied the flashy executive archetype, tailored suits, visionary rhetoric, aggressive reorgs that prioritized image. He dismissed operational depth as boring, never questioning the ownership beneath the surface. His firing of me without due process exposed not just procedural flaws, but a fundamental blindness to hidden leverage. In contrast, my approach, quiet drafting of agreements, anonymous holdings, embedded protections, ensured resilience. It wasn't about revenge or spotlight, it was safeguarding what mattered: sustainable growth, fair processes, and merit-based decisions. Mia's leadership proved listening and stability could outperform volume. Deals revived. Innovation resumed. Culture healed. One evening, reviewing reports in the same sixth-floor room where early plans were sketched, I reflected on the moral weight. What if Marcus had simply asked questions, read the documents, or treated people with basic respect? The clauses might have stayed dormant. Instead, hubris activated them, leading to his removal and the company's quiet renewal. The story leaves a lingering question. How often do we overlook the quiet architects behind success, mistaking visible authority for true control? In boardrooms across the country, similar traps may lie buried in fine print, waiting for the moment arrogance pulls the trigger. True power whispers through preparation, not shouts through titles. And sometimes, the most devastating dismissal isn't the one delivered across a desk. It's the realization that you never truly held the reins at all. The Austin sky remained the color of concrete that winter. But inside Nexus Dynamics, balance had returned. Not through spectacle, but through the patient enforcement of rules written long ago, when no one was watching. And that, perhaps, is the most haunting lesson. The foundations we ignore today may rewrite tomorrow's entire story.